Muy buenas a todos, jóvenes, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estáis? Bienvenidos a Juegos Perdidos y bienvenidos nuevamente a The Raven. Para mí es un placer poder contar con vuestra compañía. Gracias por el apoyo al canal y también a esta serie. Por supuesto, si os gusta el contenido, recordad darle un pequeño like y suscribiros si no lo habéis hecho hasta el momento, para aquellos que lo estáis viendo resubido en YouTube. Y para los que estáis por aquí en Twitch, pues gracias por acompañarnos en directo y en primicia en esta serie. Una serie que, como bien sabéis, la estoy jugando con mi colega Álvaro. Muy buenas, Álvaro.
Muy buenas tardes, ¿cómo estáis todos? Espero que muy bien, yo aquí con mi cafecito ya listo y preparado y a seguir con nuestro investigador en este barco crucero hacia el Nilo.
Muy bien, pues no vamos a perder más tiempo porque vamos un poquito tarde. Tiene ahí unos problemas técnicos para variar. Siempre pasa algo. Y le tiramos. Reanudar partida. Recordamos que lo último que pasó fue un asesinato. O sea, ya si de por sí le sumamos el que alguien está intentando robar esa joya, ahora resulta que la que había padrinado la joya y la que estaba había montado todo el viaje para que se juntaran las dos joyas, ha muerto.
No, y de hecho la que tenía una de esas llaves,
y las llaves, es verdad.
Eso es, acuérdate que había una caja, la caja donde estaba la joya que no está robada, el ojo de la esfinge que no está robado. Una de las llaves la tenía la baronesa, otra la tenía el arqueólogo, el profesor, que suponemos en algún momento dicen que se la han robado, ¿vale?
Que supuestamente la tiene, pero que parece ser, o sea, se daba por sentado de que ya se le habían copiado.
Eso, se da por sentado que Legrand da por sentado que es el inspector este que está al mando del caso, que al arqueólogo se la han copiado, y también da por sentado que al profesor del Cairo, que es el tercero que tiene la llave, que es donde vamos con el barco, también se da por sentado que la ha robado. Solo faltaba la baronesa, y ahora supongo que se dará por sentado que también se la han robado, porque si la han matado pues va a ser para algo, aunque todavía no hemos empezado a investigar realmente el asesinato como tal.
El tema como está. Bueno, pues vamos a ello.
Recordar que estamos en el barco porque alguien nos metió en la bodega.
Ah, sí, es verdad, nos metieron en la bodega y luego después lo último es que nos habían
drogado,
puesto algo en el champán y nos dejaron fuera de juego, lo cual, claro, decíamos, no tiene mucho sentido que sea a nosotros cuando tienes a otros dos policías como Legrand, por ejemplo. ¿Por qué a nosotros en concreto? En fin,
no lo sabemos,
ni idea. Vamos a ver si podemos ir a examinar la...
Sí.
The cabin was sealed. I'm pretty sure the seal doesn't have any legal relevance here on the open sea, but I'm still dependent on Legrand letting me join his team. I better not blow it by breaking his seal without permission.
Y no puedes... No tenemos nada, así que no tiene idea. No tiene pinta de que podamos...
No, entrar ahí yo creo que... De momento, yo creo que no.
Bajar escaleras... No te he dicho que baje las escaleras. No.
Pero se las has puesto tan ahí a huevo que ha dicho, mira, las voy a bajar.
Es que quería ir vamos, antes de bajar, nos quedamos en la... Ahora que tenemos la posibilidad de ver el barco, ahora parece ser que sí que nos dan un pelín de libertad, no lo sabemos.
An antique wooden globe. If Galileo hadn't asserted himself back then, this would be a flat disc now.
Pues hombre, tampoco es el hombre...
The globe nicely shows that 4/5 of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Looking out the window, I'd call that an understatement.
Pero al final Galileo tuvo que decir que sí, que era plana la... Aunque bueno, en el último momento cuando le estaban preguntando, él por lo bajini dijo, pues parece que no. Pero bueno, que él tuvo que coger, porque si no se lo cargaban,
La Inquisición.
Vaya tela.
Bueno, vamos a ver si hoy no tenemos un poco el entre comillas problema que hablábamos el otro día, que de los que nos quejábamos un poquito, que es de la falta de de protagonismo que estamos teniendo como jugadores y que estamos siendo un poco como meros espectadores de cosas que están pasando y que nosotros parece que no hacemos nada como jugadores. Así que vamos a ver si hoy se parece más al primer día en el tren que al segundo.
Sí. Vamos a ver, voy a hacer algunas cositas por aquí porque puede ser que a lo mejor yo es que veo el directo, lo veo que va.
Sí, eso pasa igual. El otro día también pasó que al principio, luego no sé si se
arregló.
Si se arregló, pero esto pasó el otro día, o sea que da por hecho que va a pasar siempre, ya está.
Sí.
Cierra todo lo que haces por ahí y se acabó.
Vale. Qué guay, Me molaría que haya gente, que hubiese gente por aquí bailando, tendría sentido, ¿no?
Sí, porque realmente se supone que en el barco no estamos solos, pero de momento no hemos visto a nadie.
Con este tema musical. A ver, esto es cartera. Bueno, pues nada, muy tropical todo. Entrada cubierta de popa. Nada. Unos temas muy divertidos. Entrar a sala de estar. Enseñar los altavoces.
These things made quite a racket last night. I couldn't hear myself think. I'd really like to lie in the sun and take a nap, but I don't have time for that at the moment. No, Jakob. Business before pleasure.
Bueno.
Big, soft towels. I could reserve a deck chair with it. No, better not.
No puedo coger una toalla, no. Vale, pues por aquí no puedo ir. No sé qué vamos por aquí. Cubierto de popa. Esto es para dar la vuelta entera, tontamente.
Sí.
Examinar cajas.
I suppose the life jackets are stowed there, close to the railing, close at hand in case of emergency. I hope I don't find myself needing a life jacket.
A ver. Muy buenas, Alberto. Gracias por pasarte. A ver, mira la gente. Oliver está tomándose una siesta.
It may not seem like it, but Constable Oliver is actually a very effective watchman.
What's going on?
The Raven just flew by.
What?
Or at least, he might as well have.
I wasn't asleep.
I understand. It was just a ruse. Any conclusions about our young stowaway?
He's a bit suspicious, foreign and whatnot.
I see. Did he act suspiciously in any way?
No. The shot surprised him as much as it did me. Looked in on him earlier. Still seems to be asleep.
Covered with a blanket from head to toe?
Ah, he's still in there. I poked him.
Perdón, nos acordarse que tenemos un polizón. Lo que no sé yo es si este fue el que nos pegó el porrazo.
May I go downstairs and have a couple of words with our guest?
No, you may not.
Come again?
Inspector Legrand wants to conduct all the interrogations himself.
I'm sure he'll understand if I form my own conclusions.
He ordered me to guard the door, and that's just what I'm gonna do.
How about a bit of individual initiative?
How about letting a man do his job? Or do you think you'd be better at it?
What do you think? What happened here last night?
The Raven broke into the Baroness's cabin, she surprised him, and he shot her.
What was he looking for in her cabin?
She was a rich woman.
Why did he lock the door?
Why not?
From inside? An impressive trick.
I'm not saying I know how he did it. I'm just saying that it was him.
Why didn't he leave a raven feather?
Are you serious? We'd have suspected him straight away.
But fortunately, we still did.
No se ha librado de eso. Claro, tiene pinta de que no es él.
Let's assume that the old raven really has returned and that he really is responsible for all this. Who is he? Or she?
Oh, could be anyone. No one's ever seen the Raven.
He could also be paying someone else to do his dirty work.
Well, of course. It's a fact that he used to work with partners. They even arrested some of his accomplices.
But no one could ever identify the raven himself. Some claims that they didn't even know that they were working for him. Fascinating. He could have hired someone with financial difficulties to set off the alarm at a certain time without that person knowing why they were doing it.
The man Legrand shot back then, he was a famous safecracker. He could just as well have been a henchman.
Or the real raven. There's probably no better cover for a big thief than acting like a small one. I don't want to keep you from your duties any longer.
Good idea.
Buena idea.
Constable Oliver brought something to drink. You can tell it's not the first time he's had to guard something. The bottle should be full of water, unless the good constable happens to have a secret alcohol problem. No way to verify that. I can't get the bottle without him noticing. The stowaway surely didn't sleep well last night in the cargo hold, although his cell is probably more comfortable than my cabin, and more spacious. I have to talk to the young fellow right away. Even though he was already under arrest at the time of the shot, he may have noticed something before. If I want to get into the cargo hold, I'll have to get rid of the constable first. He won't let me talk to our young friend.
Vale. Ya sabemos por qué, tanto rollo.
Salty sea air in my old lungs, wind in my thinning hair. If I hadn't become a policeman, I could have been a sailor. I wonder if this game is an advanced version of bocce. Maybe the inventor realized that it's difficult to play ball games on a boat and came up with an alternative.
Vale, pues tiene pinta que tenemos que dejar fuera de juego aquí al amigo. Vale, pues vamos a entrar y vamos a bajar para ver si hay algo, aunque no sé yo si aquí nos dejará coger alguna cosa. No. No. Vale. Vale.
La verdad es que se hace un poco raro que el barco esté vacío, ¿eh?
Sí, sí, es que esto...
Se
de todas
hace
formas,
un
al
poquito
principio
raro.
es cierto de que el capitán dijo que iban sobrados y que había camionetes de sobra.
Sí. Pero una cosa es ir sobrado y otra cosa es que solo vayan ellos.
A lo mejor solamente es cargamento lo que tienen que llevar.
Puede ser.
A ver.
Come in.
Pero vamos, un cargamento no lleva, no parece un crucero y tiene bar y tiene no sé qué, ¿sabes?
Hello,
Eso es verdad.
Dr. Gebhardt.
And there's the next one.
Excuse me?
You want something else from me, don't you?
I'm afraid I do.
What a first day at work. Well,
What's the result of your examination of the victim?
she's dead.
I didn't make you work all night long, Dr. Gebhardt.
She was shot. Point blank shot. Probably with a pistol. It seems like she was lying in bed. The shot struck her heart. She died immediately.
One shot?
More were unnecessary. And we only heard one shot, no?
And there's just one entrance wound.
Just one.
I am told that I was drugged.
That's how it seems.
What can you tell me about it?
Me? Why should that be my business?
Haven't you analyzed the glass?
No, I haven't. The inspector said he's the better chemist. I let him do it. That way I could at least concentrate on the body.
Eso tiene sentido. Que porque ella estaba borracha.
Sí.
Tiene sentido de que en muchas dosis te deje completamente cao. Y este también estaba cao, así que entonces a lo mejor la idea no era él, sino era ella.
Do you think the Baroness might have been drugged? She was very tired and unsteady when Legrand and I saw her.
Yeah, I heard about that. I must have just missed her in the saloon. And without having seen her myself, it is hard to make a diagnosis.
Of course. Can you say something about her general health?
She was quite overweight, and the butler said that she suffered from diabetes. Despite that, she hadn't visited a doctor for several years.
Doesn't sound good.
Happens more frequently than you might suppose. Some people are scared of doctors and pay with an early death. It is possible that the Baroness wouldn't have lived much longer anyway.
Do you know whose glass I drank from?
What do you mean?
Captain de Conti handed me a glass of champagne. But where did he get it?
I don't know. Did you ask him?
I'm just asking because you were also in the saloon when the champagne was served.
Yes, but I only entered the saloon a few seconds before you did. I didn't manage to get a drink myself.
Which, in retrospect, is lucky.
Ah, you're right about that.
Have you already removed the bullet?
Did Legrand send you? What is that Frenchman's problem? I already told you. I will get in touch as soon as I have it. That is also what I told the constable, who he kept sending all night long, once I finally got rid of Legrand himself.
Did he look over your shoulder?
He probably wanted to take the scalpel from my hand and hack away himself. But this is my surgery, and I will not let amateurs interfere with my work.
That's understandable. How much longer will it take?
I have just finished.
Ala.
Send my regards to His Majesty.
Thanks. I think that's it for now.
No. That is it for now, then, and later. I'm going to lie down for a few hours. Can you tell that to your boss?
But... could I at least have the key?
Absolutely not.
But if we have to examine the victim again...
Then the esteemed inspector knows where to find me. In my cabin. In bed. Good night, Constable Zellner.
Sí que ha sido un poco tosco, ¿no?
Sí, de nuevo, un poco lo que decíamos el otro día.
Sí,
en vez de que nosotros hayamos visto el cadáver y hayamos descubierto toda esta información, todo nos lo dice. O sea, creo que no está bien adaptado. Han intentado...
podemos darle un beneficio de la duda porque él nos ha echado. Puede ser que a lo mejor luego después tengamos que entrar y ya veamos algo.
Puede ser.
Tiene
pero...
sentido, tiene sentido. Vamos
lo que hemos descubierto, lo que nos ha dicho de el agujero de entrada de la bala, no sé qué, bla, bla. Coño, pues podías haber hecho de alguna manera de que pudiéramos entrar, mirar su expediente, que lo descubriéramos nosotros, no que esté escrito... Scriptado en diálogos de los personajes, que es como si coges una novela y directamente la pasas a videojuego, y es que no es así. O sea, que bueno, que sí, que lo puedes hacer así, pero que al final esto es una novela en movimiento, pero no estamos pudiendo hacer nada como jugadores. Entonces, no sé, me da la sensación de que no está bien hecho eso.
It used to be a freighter. The wide hallways, the cabins and the saloon were added later. A pitiful attempt to make the interior of the ship seem less dreary. A bit of paint on the walls would have helped more, especially since a plant won't survive long without daylight. An evacuation plan? And some tips from the doctor for avoiding seasickness, sunburn, and the like. And here, a schedule of activities. A drink with the captain, a shuffleboard competition on the forecastle. That's about it. A real barrel of fun. There are little stones in the flower pot. Not only does the poor plant have to make do without sunlight, it doesn't have any soil either.
No, pero que no se las ha quedado.
Really? What am I supposed to do with stones?
Tú cógelas.
Although, sooner or later.
Bueno, se ha hecho el
remolón.
El remolón, sí. Examinar pasillo, examinar...
An alarm like this one was set off yesterday. This one hasn't been set off. The security seal is intact. Small, even stones. Probably easier to handle on a ship than real soil.
Camarote de Legrand.
That is Legrand's cabin.
Come in.
Vaya.
Ah, Zellner. Are you ready?
Good morning, Inspector Legrand. My head is pounding, but I think I'm okay.
Chloral hydrate.
Hmm?
That's why you have a headache. I found traces of it in your champagne glass.
What have you found out so far?
The Baroness was shot in the chest at close range. We heard the shot. The murderer quickly fled the cabin and dropped the murder weapon over the railing later. A simple story so far.
But why was her cabin door locked?
Exactly. If the murderer wanted to make it seem like a suicide, he'd have shot her in the head and left the gun at the crime scene.
And if it was murder, why did he go to all the trouble of locking the door from inside? And how did he manage that anyway?
Especially since we arrived just a few seconds later and didn't see anyone near the cabin.
Something doesn't make sense here.
No, it doesn't, and it's driving me crazy.
Puede ser que a lo mejor hubiera algún tipo de resorte automático y que ella al sentarse se disparara un arma. No, pero entonces el arma se tendría que haber quedado ahí.
Did you find the murder weapon?
On the gangway on the side of the ship. I suspect the murderer tried to drop it into the sea. He would have stood close to the railing to let it fall unseen.
And since he doesn't know the ship, he had bad luck and dropped it right onto the gangway.
Indeed. And do you find that probable?
Not a bit.
Neither do I.
What kind of a gun is it?
A pistol, a Luger 08.
Antique.
Manufactured 1,000,000 times during and after the First World War. Austrian model. The owner is David Kreutzer, the violinist. We found him tonight totally drunk on the bow of the ship. He confirmed that it's his gun, but he claims that it was stolen from him.
Fingerprints?
Nothing. But it's worth mentioning that the clip was missing 2 bullets.
And it's definitely the murder weapon.
The ballistic tests are incomplete. Actually, I've been waiting far too long for the bullet recovered from the corpse. Pay the good doctor a visit, Zellner, and see that he does his job.
About the bullet, here it is.
Excellent. Give it to me. As I suspected, A 7.65 Parabellum?
Es que no podemos hacer nada. No podemos investigar la bala, no podemos hacer nada.
Don't you want to examine it in more detail?
When I have time. For now, though, we can assume that we had the murder weapon. There can't be too many antique Luger-08 pistols on board.
May I take a look at the Baroness's cabin?
We already searched it thoroughly.
Sure. But what about now, by daylight?
Yes, fine, it can't hurt. Here, take this with you.
Thanks. I'll let you know if I find anything important.
But only then, please. I'm very busy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Do you believe the violinist?
He'll be the first person I question. He claims he can't remember anything from the last few hours. Says he drank a bottle of schnapps.
He was on the train and he doesn't have an alibi. His drunkenness could be a smokescreen.
He fits the profile. He travels a lot, has access to high society. Could be interesting.
Recordemos además que el de violín había robado el bolso a la baronesa en el tren. Bueno, lo tenía dentro de la funda del violín. Él dice que no lo había robado, pero bueno.
And this chloral hydrate?
Is a tranquilizer. Can be dissolved in alcohol. The effect begins in minutes and lasts for hours. Who gave you the glass of champagne?
¿Podemos decir el capitán o no lo tengo claro? Lo que tú quieras.
Yo no lo tengo claro.
I think it was the captain. But he could have got the glass from someone else.
Find out.
Understood.
Pues al final también se lo ha dicho.
You think that the jewel thief is the murderer?
Our friend would have needed another key to open the safe and steal the second eye, the one the Baroness was carrying. At least, that's what we implied.
What do you mean?
The Baroness was famous for her forgetfulness. I convinced her to give me the third key. It seems safer for the eye.
The thief searches the Baroness's cabin looking for the third key.
She returns from the saloon earlier than expected.
Surprises him, and he can't allow her to identify him.
He imprisons her until the coast is clear, and then shoots her.
And thus, the thief becomes a murderer.
But still doesn't have all the keys.
O sea que al final la llave la tenía él.
Todo esto tenemos que averiguarlo nosotros, coño. De verdad, no tenían que decírnoslo todo.
Are you sure that there's no bomb inside this time?
Professor Lucien locked it in front of an audience, and it will be opened for the first time in Cairo.
Let's hope so.
It would take hours to crack it, and you'd need heavy machinery.
Or the keys.
Or the 3 keys, that's right.
Do you really think that the Raven is behind all this?
He wrote the letter that was on the safe in the train. Without the letter, we wouldn't have opened the safe and the bomb wouldn't have exploded.
But it doesn't seem like him, does it? The Raven was famous in part because he never hurt anyone, much less killed anyone, during a burglary.
It's his handwriting, and he called me Nico. No one else does that. I chased that man across Europe for years. It is him. It has to be him.
But the evidence...
Enough.
I'll be on my way. I want to find out who gave me the drugged champagne.
Good idea.
Inspector Legrand, are you okay? Maybe you should take a break.
I can sleep once I've caught the Raven. Goodbye, Constable.
Be seeing you.
Luego después se activa historias ahí, pero tampoco podemos leer mucho.
Porque no sabemos.
Legrand is risking not just his career, but his health as well on his hunt for the Raven. He's working like a demon. Maybe that's why he caught the Raven and no one else.
Exactamente lo que está diciendo Atom. Si pudieron haber hecho que se ha producido un asesinato, que nos dijeran un mínimo de información, pero que el jugador llevara el peso de la investigación. Realmente no estamos llevando el peso de nada. Pero de nada, nos están diciendo todo.
dando todo hecho. A ver
Todo
qué...
hecho. Vamos a ver si sirve de algo el
I'm not
investigar el
paying for this
camarote
trip,
de
and that's a
la
fair price
baronesa.
for my cabin. It's rather plain, shall we say?
Entrar al camarote.
No, I've slept enough.
Entrar al camarote. O sea que aquí hay otro camarote que se ve que es el nuestro. Vale. Pues yo pensé que había un pasillo, porque antes me daba la opción de examinar pasillo, pero no. Ya no hay más que examinar. Las ventanas.
Neither Dr. Gebhardt nor Constable Oliver can keep up with Legrand's pace, but in contrast to good old Robert, the doctor doesn't let himself get roped in for the long haul. I wonder what would happen if Legrand dragged him out of bed for another investigation. Dr. Gebhardt locked the door, and until I have good reason, I won't wake him up. Something tells me that he wouldn't be amused.
Dice a Tongal que le gustaría vernos jugar al Sherlock Holmes.
Ya le he dicho que si te convence. Llevo 2 años detrás de Cortés para jugar a Sherlock Holmes y todavía no.
No, pero si yo no tengo problema. Si la idea es que tenga sentido, ¿no? O sea, que empezar por uno y no perdernos en el orden. Y aparte, si tú los has jugado...
Yo, el Crimen y Castigo, ¿no?
Ah, este no.
Ese es el penúltimo.
Bueno, pues mira.
O el último es el que ha salido que me pasaste el otro día. Este es el penúltimo que salió creo que en 2000. Bueno, luego está la hija de no sé qué, Daughter, que es el último. Bueno, este es uno de los que no he jugado. El Crimen y Castigo es justo el de después del... El último que yo jugué fue el del Testamento de Sherlock Holmes o algo así, que es que muere Sherlock Holmes.
Spoiler.
Bueno, no muere, pero...
These little sachets contain the evidence we've collected. At least the evidence that fits in little sachets.
¿Qué es lo que contiene la bolsa? Romper el precinto. Ah, mira, ahora ya me deja. Vale.
This is the first murder scene I've ever set foot in.
Vale. A ver si ahora podemos investigar algo.
The most unportable portmanteau I've ever seen. A portable bar is more like it. Must be hard work transporting this big, heavy thing halfway around the globe. And the Baroness was lucky that the other freight cars were only lightly damaged by the explosion.
No se cuida mal la baronesa, ¿no?
Another alarm. It was tripped at some point. The seal is broken. But there's no way of telling whether it happened yesterday or 5 years ago.
Pues preguntando al capitán, ¿no? Supongo que eso cuando se activa luego se vuelve a poner otra vez nuevo, el precinto. Para eso están, como los de los extintores.
An impressive piece. Sí. But I don't think it'll get me anywhere with the murder investigations. The mannequin surely came with the cabin. A mannequin for the Baroness's clothes would have a more generous figure. The notepad has the ship's emblem on it. I suppose all the first-class cabins have them.
A ver si se puede leer bien. Vaya a la sala de estar a las 10 de la noche. Hay un asesino a bordo y quiero desvelar su identidad.
¿Cómo estaba firmado?
Inspector,
Bueno, ahora,
be in
vale,
the saloon at 10 p.m. There is a murderer on board and I will expose him. B.
Una B.
The Baroness seems to have known the murderer, and that means that the Raven can't be the murderer. He never killed anybody. Legrand probably never got the message, otherwise he'd have said something.
¿Por qué no es el cuervo? Puede ser el cuervo. No entiendo por qué no.
Y puede ser cualquier otra persona, no tiene por qué ser la baronesa que escribiera eso.
A ver, ha supuesto que B es baronesa, pero claro, puede ser Bernardo. O no sé, no me sé los nombres de pila de los jugadores, pero... Hombre, a ver, que eso esté en la habitación de la baronesa, parece que es quien la ha escrito la baronesa, pero no recuerdo cómo se llama el mayordomo de la baronesa.
James.
James, ¿no? Sí, pero no era su nombre real.
Realmente no era James, tenía otro nombre distinto.
Tenía otro nombre, eso es.
La baronesa, el compartimiento, la baronesa Lady Marie Claire, inconsciente, el asesinato, tiroteo, el polizón, capitán. Pues han quitado.
A ver, le han quitado, ¿no? A ver, en notas no, ¿no? En notas no está.
Regreso del cuervo.
A lo mejor está la baronesa. Mira, a ver, en la entrada de la baronesa. Puede que esté.
A ver. Para registrar el camarote de la baronesa. A ver.
Profesor, baronesa.
Desaparece.
Asesinado, qué horror. No, no está.
Ha desaparecido. El James ya no está. Es verdad.
Sí, es raro.
Pero bueno, que pasa con... Esta tampoco está.
Sí, es esa que lo ves ahí, eso.
Sí, pero que no está, que me refiero que en el barco, por lo menos, no ha aparecido.
No sé si está o no está. De momento no ha aparecido, pero no sabemos si está o no está. Vale, pues vamos, damos por hecho lo que nos dice el juego, ya está. Si el juego dice que él ya sabe que no es el cuervo y que ha sido la baronesa, pues ya está. No nos...
Yo creo que se mira la portada.
There should be a ventilation shaft behind the hatch. Usually a good way to break in and out undetected. But we're on a ship. The ventilation shafts are very small here. I can't say why, and it seems impossible, but something tells me that the murderer entered and left the cabin through the door. The only question is how.
Siendo muy escuálido.
Si es por la puerta, como dice él, no.
A tape recorder. Must go with the built-in speakers. Probably part of the cabin's furnishings.
¿Una grabadora en el camarote?
Pues sí.
The tape recorder is older than the hills, but it was once very expensive, top of the range, and it doesn't come cheap.
Puede ser que a lo mejor encontremos algo y tengamos que poner...
Tengamos que usarlo, sí, supongo.
A big, ugly, and impractical vase. If it had a wider opening, one could at least use it as an umbrella stand.
Pero mira adentro, a ver si hay algo.
Eso.
Can't see anything.
Eso, va a ser mejor.
Wow,
Va a estar,
heavier than it looks.
va a estar la cinta ahí, ya verás. What?
Aha.
Unos papelitos.
Plumones.
Nothing special. Although, it seems like one of the feathers was scorched at the top. Literally burnt. I'd better take it with me.
Vale, chamuscada.
Something's under there.
Ah, vale.
More feathers.
Puede ser, vale.
And they're singed as well.
Puede
I'll
ser
put them with the others.
Que lo hayan utilizado para... puedes ir... Claro.
Al hacer el disparo con una almohada para que haga de silenciador, se quema la pluma de la almohada. Al salir la bala se quema.
Por lo cual entonces hubo más de un disparo.
A ver, ya nos han dicho que faltan 2 balas. Entonces,
Claro.
uno es el que mató a la baronesa y la otra, o bien ya se había hecho un disparo antes
Sí,
y
porque
faltaba una bala.
a él decía que le habían disparado abajo. Cuando le dieron el copetazo,
Sí.
él mencionó que le habían disparado. Y había escuchado el disparo.
Pues entonces bueno, a ver, que la baronesa no nos hemos enterado. O si nos llegamos a enterar del
Sí, porque
disparo.
estábamos arriba con el polizón, que lo habían pillado. Le habían pillado
Pues eso yo creo que es eso, que es de la almohada.
There's still blood
Pero la
on the
almohada
mattress.
no está.
The sheet and the blanket have already been removed. To analyze them, I suppose.
No, como él cambia el color, como mola.
Nothing. The blood spot is the only sign that someone committed a crime in here.
Poquita sangre.
Somehow... That's odd. The blood is so red. Shouldn't it gradually darken in the air? Turn brown?
Pues entonces no es sangre. ¿O tiene algo la sangre?
Venga, tírale esto. A ver.
Pistas y pruebas. Legrand y el agente encontraron el arma del asesinato en la pasarela del casco. A lo mejor el asesino quiso deshacerse de ella sin que lo vieran, con la mala suerte de no conocer bien el barco. Pero hay algo que me escama. Si no fuera un asesino y quisiera hacer desaparecer una prueba importante, si yo fuera un asesino, perdón, y quisiera hacer desaparecer una prueba importante, me aseguraría bien de que de verdad desaparece. La bala que el doctor Gebhardt extrajo del corazón de la baronesa es una Parabellum de 7,65 milímetros de una pistola Luger. Me he fijado bien en la sangre de la cama de la baronesa. Algo falla, es demasiado roja. Después de tantas horas expuesta al aire, debería ser de un tono más marrón.
Vale, esto ya lo sabemos. Creo que hay más que solo plumas metidas en el jarrón, pero con la mano no llego. Anda.
Sí, porque eso no nos lo dice el personaje, tenemos que mirarlo aquí.
Pues es interesante. Suena la mancha de sangre. La mancha de sangre del colchón tiene un aspecto extraño.
Aspecto extraño. Sí, eso, o bien que no es sangre, o bien que tenía algo en la sangre que hace que no se oxide. Porque lo que sucede es que se oxida
Pero,
con
bueno,
el aire.
Con el aire, pero bueno, aquí, aunque está diciendo Anton que no entra aire por el conducto de ventilación, vale, pero aún así, al estar expuesta, aquí hay oxígeno. Con el propio oxígeno ya se estropea.
Eso es. Sí. Lo que oxida es el oxígeno, y oxígeno tiene que haber.
Si no, este hombre estaría ya comatoso.
Efectivamente.
The unusual color of the blood could be something that Legrand and Dr. Gebhardt missed last night. All cats are gray in the dark, as the saying goes. I should take a sample. The unusual color of the blood could be something that Legrand and Dr. Gebhardt... All cats...
Debería tomar una muestra.
No, si no tenemos nada para tomar muestras. De momento. A lo mejor, yo qué sé, en donde el doctor o algún sitio. O a lo mejor se refiere a tomar una muestra de la sangre, no de aquí, sino de la colcha y tal que se han llevado. Y eso estará empapado de sangre, supongo.
By Van Gogh, I presume. He liked to paint that sort of thing. Can't be an original. They cost thousands of francs.
A ver, que estás hablando de una baronesa, muchacho.
Apparently, the Baroness didn't have time to unpack her bags. Or rather, didn't have time to tell her butler to unpack them for her. Sifting through all that would take ages. But here, The Baroness's handbag.
O sea, vago.
Ah.
La cartera.
A small leather-bound book. 1964 is engraved on it. This must be the Baroness's diary.
Ya, pues.
Cosmetics, a handkerchief, a spectacles case. Nothing special. Let's see. Yes, it's a diary, all right. Difficult to read. No entry from yesterday. A brief, sober description of what she's done recently. Met Morris, arranged benefit concert for renovation of Louvre Southeastern Wing, Times photo shoot for Eye of Sphinx, BM, poor excuse for photographer, too fidgety, and so on. This entry looks strange. The handwriting is shaky, difficult to read. Dreamt of Bobby. Yesterday would have been his birthday. Next week, Jay's.
A ver, que... Me he fijado en la sangre. No, aquí esto no cambia. Entonces a lo mejor aparece...
A lo mejor es en la
baronesa.
baronesa. Puede ser. No, tampoco.
Ah, aquí está, mira.
Sí, la baronesa había sufrido una dura pérdida. Escribía sus pesadillas en su diario y llevaba su pasado siempre con ella en forma de multitud de fotos. Sospecho que su familia fue asesinada en la guerra.
Vale, pero eso tampoco aporta mucho.
De momento no, salvo que ayer es el cumpleaños de Bubi o algo así, ¿no? Ha dicho
Sí.
que empieza por B, por cierto.
Ujú, eso es. Y luego después también ha mencionado con el fotógrafo que ponía BM.
Sí, muchas veces veo por ahí.
Sí, ahora qué casualidad. Todo el mundo se llama B.
The portholes face the side deck. If someone climbed out of the cabin through a porthole, Legrand and I would have seen them. The portholes are locked. One cannot open or close them from outside. It's the same problem as with the door. If someone left the cabin through the porthole, how did they lock it? And the Baroness wasn't shot from outside. The doctor said she was shot at close range.
Pues nada. Pues yo creo que ya está, ¿eh?
A ver, mira otra vez el jarrón a ver si dice algo que... Oye, hay algo dentro o lo que sea.
Why were the down feathers tossed in the vase? Or is there anything else in there? There may be something else in the vase, but the neck is too narrow to reach in with my hand.
Rópelo,
There may
tío.
be something
Eso
else
es.
in the vase, but the neck is too narrow to reach in with my hand. Why were the down feathers tossed in the vase?
No lo va a romper.
Is there anything else?
Rómpelo con una piedrecita. No, yo creo que aquí de momento, salvo que haya algo que se pueda mirar otra vez y que te diga cosa nueva, no hay nada más. Yo diría.
The Baroness was a very busy woman, and it looks like she had to cope with loss. She writes about Bubby and Jay. Neither seem to be alive anymore. Almost every family lost loved ones in the war. Maybe hers as well.
Vale.
Pues nada, de momento poco más aquí.
The door frame was damaged when Dr. Gebhardt kicked it in. The real question is, why was the door locked in the first place?
Esa cosa que está como encima del
Assuming the
escritorio, esa
murderer
como
isn't a magician,
ventana.
and the Baroness locked the door herself before she went to bed, the murderer couldn't have left the cabin through the door. So, the murderer must have still been in here when Dr. Gebhardt kicked the door in. Which is unlikely because someone would have seen him, or he found another way out of the cabin.
Sí, aquí hay algo ahí, ¿no? Pero se ve que se ha quedado pillado, no sé lo que es eso.
Y encima, y justo lo que hay encima de eso, como que es que eso es una ventana o eso qué es, eso que tiene una cortina, ¿eso qué coño es?
Será un ojo de buey.
Pero si eso daría a otro camarote, ¿no? ¿O eso a dónde daría? Bueno, no sé.
Sí, no, da... Mira, da aquí, a esta parte.
Ah, vale.
Mira,
Vale.
tenemos al mayordomo.
Bueno, bien. Muy nervioso,
The
por cierto.
Baroness's butler looks like he didn't get much sleep. I would describe his facial expression as worried. Hello, Mr. Inch.
Oh, Constable, hello.
You look the worse for wear. It must be terrible for you.
Quite terrible. No one will hire me now.
Excuse me?
My mistress was murdered. Would you hire a butler who's been mixed up in a murder?
But if it turns out that you're not guilty...
If. But what if not? Who else would they blame? There are no gardeners on this ship.
I understand your problem. Under these circumstances, I'm sure you'd answer some questions that could help clear your name, wouldn't you?
Of course.
Did you notice anything suspicious last night?
No, sir. After the Baroness went to the saloon, I went to the forecastle. I was there until the alarm went off. I went to the side deck and arrived shortly after Professor Lucien and Miss Miller. We found you and Inspector Legrand there. You were unconscious, and the inspector asked us to take care of you.
Did you hear the gunshot?
No, just the alarm, sir.
Ha dicho que estaba Miss Miller. Ya has visto que estar está.
Sí.
You said you were on the forecastle. It sounded like the Baroness let you have the rest of the night off.
Not entirely, sir. One of the crew informed me that the Baroness wanted to be roused at 10:15.
Right. Why was that?
I suppose that she wanted to toast the success of the journey with the captain and the other passengers.
She hadn't intended to take a nap then.
That was not her way, sir. She had a lot of spirit, shall we say, when it came to social engagements and a glass or two of champagne.
The Baroness's cabin seems to have been ransacked.
Indeed, sir, by the Baroness herself.
Really?
She was searching for something the entire afternoon.
And did she find it?
I think she did, sir, yes. She was in high spirits when she finally left her cabin.
You wouldn't happen to know what she was looking for, would you?
I'm afraid not.
Would you describe the Baroness as orderly?
Well, she always had a lot of responsibilities, sir.
That doesn't answer my question.
She used to take a lot of luggage on journeys, and I helped her keep track of it as best I could. She was always very angry when she couldn't find something.
What about the photos and the documents I saw in her cabin?
I really don't know. They were out of bounds to me, sir. Memories from the war, I'd say. They meant a lot to her.
The Baroness seemed to be pretty drunk the last time I saw her.
Is that so?
Does that surprise you? Did the Baroness not drink?
Oh, yes, she drank. It was no secret.
I understand. How serious was her habit?
Serious enough, sir.
Was she under any medical supervision?
Certainly not, sir. She adamantly refused to see a doctor. Like so many elderly women, she had a distinct aversion to hospitals and the like.
How long had you worked for the Baroness?
6 months, sir.
Only 6 months. I always thought that butlers stayed with their employers for decades.
Those decades have to start at some point, Constable. Her former butler wasn't able to fulfill his duties any longer. Gout, sir.
I understand.
I took on his duties and hoped for a secure position for the next 20 years.
May I ask what happened to your arm?
A souvenir from the war, sir.
Doesn't it hinder your work?
Yes, sir, obviously.
I didn't mean to offend you.
The Baroness had a soft spot for disabled veterans. I think she'd been through a lot herself.
I think that's all for now.
Please, sir, find the murderer. You have to clear me of all suspicion.
Interesante.
¿Puede ser que ese brazo sea del disparo que le dio Legrand porque sea el cuervo?
Interesante, muy interesante. Que lleva tan poquito. Se juntan muchas cosas, ¿eh?
Sí.
Se juntan muchas cosas de repente. Ahí está.
James el mayordomo. James está preocupado por las consecuencias para su devenir profesional si nadie atrapa al asesino. La muerte de la baronesa en sí no parece quitarle el sueño, posiblemente porque apenas llevaba un par de meses a su servicio.
Bueno, ha dicho 6 meses, ¿no?
Ha hecho 6 meses.
Sí.
¿6 meses? Sí, 6
Ha
meses.
dicho 6 meses. Aquí pone par. Bueno,
Un par.
Mes arriba, mes abajo.
Sí. Me encaja también la edad, porque si realmente al cuervo se le cogió hace 20 años, ¿no? Han dicho. Pues puede ser.
Bueno, no tanto, no, porque Legrand este se le ve jovenzuelo. Pero que
No
lleva
sé.
mucho tiempo cogerlo, ¿no?
No
Pero
sé.
que lleva mucho tiempo por ahí dando vueltas, sí.
Me encaja por edad también, en que pueda ser el cuervo este hombre. Pero bueno, ya veremos.
Sí, pero le pega.